Hey, what's up? Nice to meet you. I'm Fred Ruff, ex 3D Studio product designer and blogist extraordinaire with RuffStuffCG, and just kind of been talking about things I do in production and kind of sharing them with people. I kind of like sharing knowledge, and I love the look I get in somebody's face when I can tell them a little bit about a feature and tell them a story behind it or why it was there in the first place, or things aren't as always as easy to do as you'd think. Um, and this week I'm just going to talk about Flex. This is the first video podcast I'm going to do, and I'm going to use Flex. It was one I did as an article, and I'll probably do a couple more. I'd like to talk to you more about the different topics that I've been discussing. For this week, we're going to play with this Flex modifier. The first thing that I'm doing here is, wow, nice quad menu. What's going on with that? All right. Just talk about what we're doing. In this case, let's say I have an elephant like this, and then maybe it's a background character. We don't need bones in the trunk, and we want to make the trunk kind of swing around. I mean, you can use this for dozens of things. I've seen people do water simulation with springs and crazy stuff like that. When it works, it does a very specific trick. But I'm not going to do it on the model itself. I'm not going to put springs on every vertex in this model. It just doesn't make any sense. It would just come to a crashing halt, and you'd have to get some kind of crazy system to multi-process enough to be able to run that thing. So what I'm going to do is just use this little shape that I'm working with here. This little shape here. Oh, by the way, you see those little boxes I keep getting? If you see this kind of stuff, you can just hit J on the keyboard. Bam. Gets rid of that. I think it just turns off the bounding box mode. So I'm going to use this thing instead because it's a lot lower, lower vertex count and lightweight. And it's going to do great at deforming this thing. So let's go ahead and drop this flex modifier on there. Like that. And the first thing is the flex modifier has two different systems inside. The first one's called chase springs. And chase springs is like kind of a fake spring system. It just kind of lags things. Originally, this modifier was actually called lag. As a matter of fact, I bet you there's some stuff in MaxScript still that refers to the modifier as, the lag modifier somewhere, unless they finally recoded it to death and got all that out of there. So I'm going to turn off these chase springs and these weights. If I leave them on, you'll start seeing an effect kind of immediately. Maybe not. Yeah, there it is. It's a little bit of swaying going on down there. But it's not very realistic. It's just kind of a center point out. So the center point of the pivot, and then from there, it kind of lags itself. It doesn't really work for a realistic thing though. So with those now off, let's turn on our springs so you can see them. So we'll click on the Show Springs button. Now the way I like to describe these springs is it's like in a vector set. Imagine the points on a model, like this little box here. The points basically get connected by edge springs, and those edge springs make it so they can kind of swing around each other. They'll never get pushed in and they'll never get pulled out. They'll always try to keep that length from each other. And then there's another type of spring called shape spring. And basically when you have a box, the shape springs will attach across ways, and I believe also on the edges. And those basically add a stiffening mechanism. And when you have enough of those, you'll have these cages of springs that are all kind of trying to be stiff. It'd be nice if they all individually had their own control for stiffness and stuff like that, but they don't. They kind of work as a unit, and that's probably what makes them work, because it'd be too complicated to weight individual springs. So that's what we're going to do here. Now let's go to the options menu, and we're going to put them on by hand. The one thing you could do here is you can go to this create simple soft body, and you can hit that button. It'll give you a setting about the influence radius of each vertex, and the number is going to be pretty arbitrary. It might be units in length or something like that. Go ahead and hit OK, and you'll see that you get a spring system, which is pretty cool. And in this case, this would probably work fine. I could probably hit play, and in theory, if it was doing anything, it would work pretty fine. Now at the moment, nothing's happening because everything is affected by these springs. So that means nothing is affected by the parent object. So if we want this thing to actually kind of wobble around, we want to leave the parts at the top of the trunk to be stuck with the head, and then kind of let everything else flop around behind it. So to do that, one of the best ways, believe it or not, is using a soft selection with the soft select modifier. So we'll just use like a poly select modifier and select all the verts except for the ones at the top. We'll leave those alone. And we'll just pass that to the select modifier and tell it, to the flex modifier and tell it to go from here. So now when I hit play, you can see that like those verts are kind of getting tugged around. But the funny thing is that they don't have any like gravity or any influence. So they're kind of floating around in like outer space. So let's go to the forces and deflectors and let's add the gravity force that I have in here. Now let's take a look at this. I have a feeling we're going to want to back up a little bit. So now I hit play and all my vertices pretty much go off the map like that. Now that means that my springs are just very weak. They're not very strong. And you can see in here with this, we're using this simple soft body we created. Let's put the stiffness up to like 20 or something like that. And now you can see we're starting to get some object getting affected here. Now, I don't want to use these simple soft bodies. These are kind of cheating, and a lot of times they just create way too many springs. So let me show you how to do this by hand. Let's grab all these verts on this object, and we'll just go to over here and say remove springs. Jump to our side viewport. What I like to do is grab a section like this. Let's grab all of them first. And we'll put on all those edge length springs like this. We'll just say edge length springs, add spring. And normally they'd show up in blue, but I don't know, over the years, it's a bug. It doesn't show up in blue anymore. And then we'll go back to the same dialog, switch it over to shape length springs to selected. I know this looks very complicated, but it's really just a simple way of saying what you're going to apply springs to. In this case, we always do selected, and we always do either edge length springs or shape springs. So let's select this little area here and hit add spring. And you'll see that it makes that little kind of X. And we'll do it there too. We'll add springs all down to these individually like so. Add spring, and add spring. Now I notice too, I want these ones here to influence a little bit more. So I'm going to select those 4 there and say add springs. And now you can notice it creates an extra bunch of springs. And I can actually do that each of these sections, adding a little bit more springs, overlapping each group as I go, something like that, and beautiful. Okay. Now that I got that going, let's hit play, see what we got here. Nope, going way out of control. One of the things with Flex that's also interesting is it has like 3 different types of algorithms that it uses. The first one is Euler, the second one is midpoint, and the third one is Runge-Kutta 4. No idea. But that one is actually the best. They're in order of the fastest and most likely to explode, and then down the list to the Runge-Kutta. Runge-Kutta? I don't know. Don't know how to pronounce that one. Somebody maybe give me a Wikipedia lookup on what that's from. So there's my big elephant trunk hanging and swaying around. It looks like it got a bit stiff for me. I might want to take a little bit of that down. And even though I'm not using the simple soft body this time, you can still use these stretch and stiffness parameters. A lot of people think that because they're in the advanced spring dialog over here, they have to enable advanced springs and then start messing with these parameters. And that can get you can get in trouble pretty quick. While it might be a good place to try out some things, I've heard that these settings can easily get blown away into a situation that just completely explodes all your stuff. So I like to just stick with the simplified controls that try to balance each other out. And there you go, getting something a little bit more floppy. And let's hide that thing now. Oh, and then I have this object over here just showing you collisions. I think you get the idea, but you can use a deflector like this and kind of put that in the way. And then if we go to the front viewport, let's hide this thing, turn that off, hit play. Should bounce into that. There we go, it bounced into it. What do you think? Not a bad little setup. I'd say we'd have to go further with how we skin this thing and how this was attached to the body, but you get the idea. I have a couple little movies here. I have them all online too. I'll just bring one of those up to show you how it looks kind of in the end. Come on, come on. Now I'm probably going to bring up like 4 of them just to show you guys. Ah, there you go, of course. So there's a little movie of what the final result kind of looked like the last time I did it. Kind of looked like it was folding in on itself there. I believe that I wasn't too happy with that, and I kind of kept going. But that was the one I ended up posting. But definitely kinks up on itself. I'd probably need a couple extra springs right in there to see what's going on. Also on this one, I didn't add any gravity too, so a lot of this is just, again, in a vacuum. But hope you enjoyed that. Hit me up with an email or question if you have anything that you've always kind of wondered about and wondered why it was the way it was. Go ahead and post it at RuffStuffCG.com, put it in the forum, and I'll get back to you on it. See you next time.